Hey folks, it's Brian. We got to play Elderath last night, and it's kind of interesting in that we're on ships out in the ocean, and we anticipate ship-to-ship combat and boarding parties and that kind of thing happening. So the GM was working on different kinds of rules to simulate all that. I believe he used the RQ3 stuff, and it was interesting. He's discussing uh, before and a little bit during the game about how the rules, as he's reading through it, just don't quite make sense because no ship could survive traveling in normal sea states. So he's trying to make his own little improvisation on how all that works. Um, but okay, so the Norse at the docks. We gather at noon, and so off we go into gale force winds that are actually against the direction we're trying to go. So it was pretty rough trying to figure out, okay, if the wind's blowing this way and we're going this way and we're trying to do this and Wes is doing breezes, how much can he do and that kind of thing. It gets a little convoluted. In fact, at the end of the session, there's a rather in-depth discussion on that specific thing, wind direction, and how much Wes can boost breezes and that kind of thing. If you watch the live play in the description, if you're into that kind of thing. So anyway, those gale force winds damage our ship. So we got to find where to go. And we end up heading for Nis for repairs. As we're limping that direction, Wes spies some seagulls swarming. So we go to investigate, and sure enough, there's wreckage. So we're looking for boards and other sorts of materials for repairing our own ship and other supplies. You know, if there's anything that's, you know, a barrel of apples, you know, that kind of thing floating in the water, we grab them too. There were some bodies um, in the water, and Runt actually recognized one of them as one of his drinking buddies. So we figured this is one of the this had been one of the warships that went out looking for the sea serpent. Okay. And as Runt is searching, he does find evidence of what caused damage to the ship. There is a large rake mark on the planking that one of the bodies is resting on. So we got it, and the sea serpent we saw didn't have, you know, like claws. This is something else, and it's not like the sea people who have hand-sized claws. It's big. Okay, so we gather up supplies and repair materials. We don't see any survivors. And then Runt kind of asks the sailors, "Hey, do you recognize these marks?" And then they get really quiet because no, they don't. That's big and nasty, and we don't want to run into it. So we head to the village of Mostar on the island of Nis. Next day, the wind shifts slightly, but there's no change in the strength. So we do make some good time to Nis. Raymond finds more birds out swarming because Raymond's been up in the bird's nest off to the northwest. So we go over there, more wreckage, and Wes can hear some tapping. So we search around, and we do find a survivor. He's in a bad way. He's got burn marks all over him. He says, "They came in the night." We go, "Who?" He goes, "Foul demons in the dark." And Runt says something about dark elves. Did they have spiders? And then the guy says, "Oh, you've seen them. There was a spider on their sail. There was one who had the body of a spider." So he's going, "Okay, how'd you get these burn marks?" He says, "They threw fire. The sail burst into flames. It came from their ship." And I went, "Were there any humans on the ship?" He says, "The dark elves and the spider creatures. I didn't see any men." So Raymond, throughout this process, has been doing healing on the poor guy. And he tells us after, you know, the fleet had broke up, and they were circling in this area thinking the serpent might be here. And we are just west of the halfway point between Nis and the other island that we came from. And the GM pointed out, you know, when we ran into the serpent, we were on that other side of the halfway point. So these guys are too close to Nis, or not far enough away from Nis, to find the serpent. But we gathered more supplies. It's about 8 more hours to Mostal. And Wes is trying to experiment with some of his spells. So he's got one spell called Air Wall that reduces movement through it by 50%, and I was kind of thinking you could move the wall, right? Which means not just this way, but this way, so we could like tilt it against the thing. But the GM's, it's a wall. It's parallel to gravity, or perpendicular to gravity. So, but it's a 3 foot thick wall. So, putting that down against the worst part of the water coming through did in fact reduce the flooding happening in the ship. So that was a plus. And it's a concentration spell, so he could just sit down there and keep that going. All right. Okay, we make landfall at Mostar, and there are 2 other longships that are here under repairs. They took damage from the storm as well. So head up to the pub. Fight's going on, and our burn victim's describing his encounter. The ship had a black sail with a silvery spider motif on it. There were several sails, and there were 2 masts. So it's unlike any ship that we've seen before. And was this maybe like the ship that we saw in the alternate NIS? Oh, yeah, maybe something like that, yeah. And the burn victim guy describes this spider creature with the torso of a man. It's a quite harrowing experience, and the evening passes. Okay, next day, Raymond walks about to see what's happening. He finds a shrine where he makes obeisance, and then he comes back around to the docks. Hjalmar, meanwhile, is at the docks helping with manual labor on the repair of our ship. And Wes is just kind of watching what's going on, and he tries to impress. Well, not really try to impress. He tries to be helpful by making recommendations on what they're doing based upon his general physics knowledge. In order to assist their efforts. He failed that role, though, by the way. So longships are actually pretty much repaired. We're going to take off with the tide when it comes, or maybe when it goes. So we do tell the captain, hey, you need to go further out. You need to go a day and a half out, rather than the 3/4 of a day they had been going. And they think, hey, that's right, everybody else is going to be in the wrong place. Yeah, we can find the servant. And off they go. So, we're waiting for our ship to get repaired. And that evening, there's a commotion. So we go out and see what's going on. They're shouting and yelling in the village. We go check it out. There's a group gathering in a common area, and a bunch of them with torches and clubs and stuff. And someone is being bandaged on the street. So Raymond moves in to assist. And this is a teenage boy. His clothes are all torn in places. His feet are all bloody. He's been beat up. But there's this needle in him. He's been poisoned. There's also, other scratches and contusions. So Raymond's doing his thing. So these abrasions appear to be like from falling down and running through tree branches and that kind of thing, right? But investigating the needle, it has characteristics that are more illustrate a more modern understanding of aerodynamics. So it's actually a flèche. So it's got little fins that aren't feathers. It's some kind of material like you find in a bat wing kind of thing. But it's not high-tech materials. That's what they're going. Is this a Camino saber dart? No, it's not. Because there was, maybe some people from the other land came through and things were happening. So we're trying to figure out what's going on. But then it occurred to Wes, hey, does this look like the dart that Runt got shot with in the mines by the Spider Witch? And sure enough, it's exactly the same. So Runt interrogates, he's talking to the boy. The boy says, there were shapes in the darkness. The barn was burning. People were screaming. Pa told me to run here. I felt pain, but I kept running. Okay, so people around us are gathering weapons and such. So we go and we gear up. And when we get back, there's a second group that's gathering with real weapons and real armor that is forming up. Okay, so the first mob moved up pretty quick, but the guys we're with now, they just maintain a steady pace. Wes casts a couple of familiar spells, so Emerald is up and ahead about 500 feet, and Wes is sharing her senses. As we can see that there are folks out there at the homestead putting out the fires, but there's no combat going on. When we get there, we start looking around. Runt finds some tracks, and he follows them off. Wes finds the boy's tracks, because Wes is thinking, okay, the boy got shot after he was leaving, kind of thing. So if we find his track and we can kind of search off to one side or another, we might find evidence of where the darts came from. So that's what Wes is thinking. But he finds the boy's tracks, but in searching either side, he doesn't find anything. So we head back to Hjalmar was with Wes, and Runt was with Raymond. So Wes and Hjalmar come back to the homestead, and later on, Runt and Raymond come back, and two of the leaders of the second group are talking with some of the other soldiers, and they're discussing the missing bodies. There are no bodies here, and we tell them, the Dark Elves are known to be slavers. Um, and as we're going back to town, we see a glow. So we run. The village is in fact on fire. Raymond can see a ship sailing away in the darkness. And since he pointed it out, Wes could see that there were people about. So he fires a long-range, overcharged, not lightning bolt, because lightning bolt is shoot his light dart thing. I forgot what it's called. And he hit. He did 5 points of damage to somebody. But anyway, a little note about the masts. The masts are set at an angle to the hull, and that they're is it lantine? Is that how you say that? Lantine sails. They're triangular, and it's moving quickly and against the wind. Okay, as we start gathering and fights going on, we end up losing one of our crew. And there's only minor damage to the ship. They weren't here to destroy the ship. They kind of knock the ship out of the so it falls off. It's rigging up where they're doing the repairs and stuff. So there's some more damage done to it, but just minor. Everyone who had been succumbed to the poison darts were taken. This was a grab and go. Now, the ship came after the raiding had already started. So the raiders hit the village, or hit the homestead, came around to the village, waited until everybody left, then hit the village. Then the ship came, everybody on the ship, and off they go. It takes a couple of days to get our ship repaired. And while that's going on, farmers from that line homesteads come in to help do repairs to the village. Our ship gets finished repairs, and we head out to the Serpent area, day and a half out. Because we're still looking for Mad Eye, although there's this whole what do we do about the Dark Elves thing. And as we get out there, we do see two ships to our southeast. As we approach, we can tell they're engaged in pitched battle. And we struggle to get closer. We can see that one of the ships is in fact from the clan Furbolg. And that's when the whole discussion on how long would it take us to actually get there, since we're going so slow. And they're also going against the wind, but they're rowing. And will breezes help any and all that kind of stuff got figured out. Very interesting discussion. Anyway, happy gaming.